Greetings gamers, FiOth here, and in this video I'm bringing you my honest AF review of Capcom's Resident Evil 4 Remake that became available a few days ago. Disclaimer, as we're going into this review there will be no spoilers. Everything you see is from the opening act of the game that was available as a demo weeks before the game came out. No subtitles, nothing at all will be a detriment to how much you can enjoy your experience with the game. I don't use footage from later on because I think that your enjoyment of the proceedings is more important than my review looking cool, so this is the way we're doing it. Let's get the simple stuff out of the way, and that is the technical aspects. I'm gonna start real plain here. Although I'm not a fan of the Callisto Protocol, and you probably know this, the game's technical aspect was top-notch. The character models, sweat on the set models, particle effects, environmental design, level of detail was unparalleled. That's to a certain degree why the game ran so poorly. Dead Space, excellent as well, but on a more expected level. And after those two are said and done, we come to Resident Evil 4 Remake. The game comes third because it is a cross-gen project with little focus on the latest technology when it comes to making it as shiny as possible. It uses RE engine, a very impressive engine, no doubt about that, but it also provides seamless gameplay, very few elevators or doors that you'll have to open whilst watching Leon doing his animation stuff. Compared to the other two, Dead Space and Callisto Protocol, it is a much more streamlined and seamless experience, but a little bit less graphically impressive. You wouldn't be able to really tell from the opening out of the game because it is very contained. They knew what they were doing with the demo as well. What you see in the opening act is a good representation but very tailored. Everything from then on is absolutely gorgeous but not as top-notch as its contemporaries. So graphics are beautiful. The artistic direction is excellent, and I'm gonna touch upon this a little bit later, but when it comes to sound, it is sheer perfection, and both the voice acting and the sound effects and music are fantastic. Music has been revisioned and it's great. It's the old tracks mostly, especially for boss fights, but more nuanced this time, more intricate compositions. Voice acting is fantastic, top-notch. They changed a couple prominent characters, voice actors here, but it's fine. It's an acquired taste for some people, others will find it okay, some will not like it. I am not a big fan of Ada's new voice actress, but the delivery was excellent. It's just that the voice was better matching the character before. Just a personal opinion, nothing to add or subtract from here. It's just preference. Gun sounds, ambience, the music, the flora and fauna, all that stuff is perfection. Like, there is nothing to say about those things. You'd be nitpicking to hell. Okay, the soundscape all in all is fantastic. Nothing to say here. Moving on. Of course you knew that. What you wanna hear from yours truly is how does the game stack up to the original, what is better and what's worse. How close to being perfect is Resident Evil 4 Remake? And I'll be glad to tell you it's pretty darn close. I have very few gripes with the game. My initial playthrough was about 20 hours because I was looking very thoroughly, and still I botched some things because I had to close the game, go record and come back. I would have forgotten a couple of things and then I missed a couple of things, but it's fine. I played it a million times, so it doesn't matter. The combat has been revised and it's much more fluid, much more responsive. You have a ton of tools in your tool belt to tackle the opposition, and as such, the challenge has been upped. Much more challenging, much more brutal game. The hardcore mode of the remake is the professional of the old game, and the professional of the new game is brutal AF, which is good, because it's good to have a challenge without relying on gimmickry, you know? let's say, the final Nemesis fight in the Nemesis remake, which was a disgrace. 2 minutes. 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 2 minutes AI is much more aggressive, they have many more animations and are much more unpredictable, so they keep you on your toes. My biggest gripe with the original Resident Evil was the shift in tone later on in the game and the lack of a coherent vision when it came to how it would handle its atmosphere. Mr. Shinji Mikami is one of my all-time favorite creators, but during the early 2000s, I think he jumped on the shooter boat pretty hard, and that affected Resident Evil 4 in a way that kinda created the bottom line for the next game in the series. And when that next game in the series sold really well, we got the disgrace that was Resident Evil 6 afterwards, which was like a hard reset because they understood they had effed up royally at this point. So, mid of the castle and moving forward in the original, you get cultists with Gatling guns. Then you get the Ganados on the island, the big guys carrying Gatling guns and turrets and rocket launchers, and it would be a mess. What they actually fixed here is that they follow a much more logical narration arc when it comes to what you are fighting. So in the village, you're fighting the villagers. In the castle, a medieval castle, you're fighting cultists. They welcome you with their cannons, but cannons are logically found in a castle that was built in the Middle Ages. And there is not a military issued armament in sight. Okay, until you clear the castle, you'll never see any Gatling guns or any stationary turrets or anything like that. Then you move on the island, and of course the Ganados there have weapons because that is actually an Illuminados fortress. Much more nuance and many more details are given when it comes to how the Los Illuminados came to be, how they rose to prominence, and what kind of access they had to all those assets in order to be able to establish dominance in the area and affect the events of the game. Much more streamlined, and what I also appreciated a lot is that the motives of certain characters are now much more understandable, like Krauser, for example. I'm not gonna throw spoilers in here about who Krauser is or what ifs, but for the people who have already played the OG, I thought you should know that storytelling and narrative are vastly improved here, and the campiness is almost entirely gone. Okay, there are one-liners in here, there is humor, but it is not Marvel humor, like in your face all the time, laughing and giggling and all that stuff. That's a staple these days. Much more finesse was used, and I am all for it. Now, when it comes to the pacing of the game, some things have been tweaked. The biggest different one we'll perceive is the boss fights. Gone are the quick time events. You will only be ever prompted to dodge with your dedicated dodge/crouch button, and the knife was integrated into the gameplay excellently. There's an actual boss fight with the knife that works. The more stationary, passive, bigger bosses have been totally reworked, and some of the most over-the-top stuff has been removed, like the laser fence corridor, and that's probably for the best because we have to at some point collectively forget that Anderson was ever entrusted with this IP to make movies. They removed another boss from the game. They removed a boss fight, and it was one of my favorites. That was a bummer for me because I wanted to see what that boss would look like with current technology. Sadly, it's nowhere to be found. Bummer. What can you do? It is what it is. And what is here though, what stayed in the game, is the best parts of the original and some very interesting additions that feel totally organic when it comes to how the events progress. You'll never feel like, oh, this is new stuff, that's why it doesn't make as much sense or it seems tacked on. Nothing like that ever will cross your mind because everything seems like it was made in one take. And I don't mean the camera work. God no, man. That hypocrisy has to stop. The camera work here is free. Different takes, different situations, but everything feels like it was taken out of the same oven, the same bake process. Now, one thing that I want to touch upon, and I know it's going to be an issue for some and it's going to be fine for others, is the inclusion of the shooting range in the remake. In the OG game, if you played around with a shooting range, you would get some models that you could view in the game, no achievements back then on the GameCube and later on the PlayStation 2, and some money. That was it. If you didn't want to bother with it, it was totally fine. You never had to bother with it. Now you get attachments to put on your case that modify what drops you get, your economy and all that. That means that in every new game we play ever, we'll have to play 1 hour of shooting range at least. If you're bad at it, you're gonna play a lot more. If you're good at it, you might play a little bit less. But you'll have to go through a gauntlet of those damn mini games to get the attachments that will help you ultimately with your game. If it's gonna be a secondary shenanigans nonsensical mini game, it should not affect the actual gameplay in any freaking way ever. That was a misfire. That is the thing that determines the overall experience for me. Because if I want to have an optimal run with the little dongles helping my healing, my bullet drops, my peseta economy and all that, I have to play the damned shooting range minigame. I don't understand why that is. Trophies and achievements are also tied to it as well, because of course there are. And I really hope for once in my life there will be some modder out there that will make a mod, at least for the PC, that'll be like always win with an S at the shooting range, because I am deathly bored of it. I don't like it. A set of additions was also included that are the requests you get from the merchant mostly. You get little pieces of text and he's like, shoot the blue medallions, shoot the rats, find me some snakes, get me an egg, destroy that painting and all that. And you just go out of your way to complete these side objectives and you get to re-experience some areas of the game with different enemies, mini bosses that are optional, and it's all excellent stuff. If you don't want to do it, you don't have to do it, but if you do it, it always feels like thought of and everything is very well crafted. All in all, do I suggest you get this remake of a game? I heard a lot of whining about, oh man, they're always making these remakes, now no new ideas. When Resident Evil 4 came out, it was 2005, that's 18 years ago. Okay? If you had the puppy when Resident Evil 5 came out, said puppy is no longer with you probably. Sorry for the grim remark, but guys, it's a huge ass amount of time. I am 34 and when Resident Evil 5 came out, I was in school. High school, but I was in school. Okay, so 18 years is a long time, especially when it comes to tech. And since Capcom is notoriously, criminally inept when it comes to porting old games to newer systems and putting in the minimum amount of effort, because if you take Resident Evil 4 for the PlayStation 4, for example, the OG, and compare it to Resident Evil 4 modded by people who actually love the game, the modders did a better job than Capcom did. So what we actually needed was a high-profile release with current-gen tech to bring out what was best in this game, which was a technical showcase for its time, and Resident Evil 4 Remake is a technical showcase for this era. So no, 18 years later is not a cash grab, it makes total sense, and there is enough new and fresh here to make your experience as eye-boggling as it was when you played it first on the GameCube. This game didn't try to ride on the expected popularity of some other same named media in order to re-release a game that was much younger, if you know what I mean. This game took a great historical title that changed the face of the industry and brought it back better than ever. Is Resident Evil 4 Remake a better game than Resident Evil 4 on the GameCube? Gatling guns are gone, kitsch aesthetics are gone, Ashley, help me, Leon, is gone, by the way. Ellen Freya and the other two ladies that lend their assets to create Ashley all did a great job. She's very, very likable, actually behaves like a teenager, but not like a whining weakling. Like, she has some meat on her bones when it comes to how strong she is as a character, not a female character. I'm not trying to pull anything out of my hat here. A human being, badass, courageous. She actually stands up to the occasion and manages to pull through. That's what I want to see in 2023. I don't need another damsel in distress. I was born in the 80s. Enough is enough. Yeah, it's the better of the two, guys. It's almost perfect, actually. It does everything it tries to do almost perfectly, never stumbles, and if the damned shooter age minigame was out of the equation, I'd say it's as close to perfect as a game can aspire to be in its specific genre. It passes for me with flying colors. I don't give numerical score. If you want my recommendation on whether to get it or not to get it, go get it. And if you're gonna ask me, should I get this or Dead Space Remake, Callisto Protocol is out of competition because it's very, very bad. Yeah, guys, either of those two will serve you well. Do you prefer science fiction or something more grounded? Throw money at the screen, either to Capcom or EA. I can't believe I'm saying this. Excellent products, and I'm so glad we're getting good horror experiences, even if it is of the modern kind, not the traditional survival horror that I sometimes miss. But Signalis is there for that. I hope you found this useful and informative. I'm doing this for every title I spend a lot of hours in lately, so sub, like, share, hit the notification bell. I've made a ton of content when it comes to guides for this, and I'm also streaming it and intend to do so until Jedi Survivor releases, so I hope I'll see you around. It's been FiOth, guys, and until next time, be well, stay frosty, and always strive for perfection. Cheers!